Hi everyone, this is Thomas Dawson. I'm here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And today what I'm going to do is a little post-processing tutorial on manual blending techniques. Now this is my first video that I've done like this, so I'll do my best to muddle my way through it. I don't really know how other people set their cameras up and audio and all that stuff, so I basically just have my camera sitting right beside me here. Pointed at my screen, and I'll just do my best to give you some pointers and tips on manual blending. And in particular, this is for people who've taken some of my workshops, and even more particular, some people that recently took my waterfall workshop. So I'm going to use a waterfall photo, and I've already prepared two photos in Lightroom, one with the exposure correct for the water, which was very bright, and then another photo for the exposure for all the greenery and the trees around the water. So as I always mention, take at least two photos when you're out in the field, even three sometimes, when you have a lot of brightness in one area, whether it's the sky or water or whatever it is, and then another exposure to get the greens and the moss and the trees correct, and then sometimes even one in between. So let's get started with this. And I'm going to open up what I've labeled as the darker photo. So I'm going to open this up in Photoshop, and I'm just using old Photoshop 5, and so it's not the updated one. And I've already prepared these in Lightroom, as I mentioned. I'll go over a little bit more about that in just a second as I open up the lighter photo. Computer is just a little bit slow. So as you can see, this water here, I've deliberately left it overexposed because, to be quite honest, in Lightroom with the camera that I use, the Sony A7R at the moment, I could have done this all in one go in Lightroom, but to make my points, I deliberately left this area overexposed. Hopefully you can see that I'm circling here, all the water here and here, all overexposed. So that's image number 2, and then I've got the water actually more properly exposed. Whoops, here's lesson number 1. You can go to edit and step backwards and get rid of those kind of little funny things that I ended up just doing there. This is actually a little bit underexposed, so I'll work on that as I go along. But basically the first step that we need to do is think of it this way. I've got two images, and what I'm going to do is go to select, then all, then over here to the left, up in the top left corner here, to edit, copy, and then I'm going to click on my other image here, the brighter one, and then I'll go back to edit over here, and then paste. And then I'll go down here in the far right corner here to add vector mask, and I'm going to click once on that. So now think of it like this. I've got this image here, and what I actually want to do is I want to bring out the brighter image. So think of it as one image stacked on top of the other, and it's like I've got a magic eraser that I can start erasing the darker stuff to bring out the lighter picture that's underneath. So now I'm going to go over to, I've got a brush selected over here, brush tool, and it says brush tool B, for if that helps at all. And then I've got over here, I've got opacity, and I've got flow. And this is what you can adjust to suit your needs. I'm going to go to 100% again just to make a point, and I'm going to enlarge this in the size here. I've got hardness. If I was to go all the way over to the right with hardness, that's going to make a real distinct hard line when I'm going over this image. But I want it to be nice and soft at the moment, and just to give a feathering effect. So let's go to it right here by the water, and as you can see, I'm bringing that out, and I'll just do this as quickly as I can, bring this all out. And while I'm doing this, I'll just mention that what I also did in Lightroom earlier on is that for this area up here, I actually softened it. So I went to the clarity slider, and I went to -30 on that, and that's right at the moment That might look like it's going to be all a little bit too bright, but hopefully in the end it'll all look nice and I can work with that later on. So I'm going to bring out all these dark areas, and some might argue that it actually looks good the way it is with the darkened areas, and they might say, well, it kind of makes it look a little bit more mysterious, and that's the look they like. But it's all a matter of opinion, so I'm just showing you the way that I do things, and we'll work with it once I get this done a little bit more here. I'll try to zip through this rather quickly. And it's particularly along here when you get close to, for instance, the water, that you really want the feathered instead of the hard brush. So now try and get this all as much as I can. Just point over right here. I was kind of doing this during the workshop, so there's a bit of activity going on around, and so I didn't really care that somebody's tripod was here. This is actually somebody right there from the workshop, and you'll even see part of a face right here from somebody that was taking their shot. So I didn't really care about any of that stuff, because it'll give me the opportunity to demonstrate a few things to you. And again, while I'm just finishing this off, what I generally recommend people do is take one exposure for the water, but some people like that silky smooth look, and you can go more to f22 for that at ISO 100, or you could do f18 or f16, and you could use a neutral density filter if needed, but it was a little bit dark in this area here, this scene, so I don't think it was really necessary. At least I didn't use an ND filter. Some people like a little bit more texture in the water, so you might want to have a quicker exposure. So, you know, whatever suits your taste is all fine. No, neither one is right or wrong. It's just a matter of taste. So, getting closer here, and then also what I like to mention is that while we're taking these photos, there's a few branches that were waving in the wind a little bit. So, I always recommend taking a second photo at perhaps ISO 640 or 800, and it could be f11 or f14, and then you get a real quick exposure, so you don't have a bunch of blurry branches later on in your photo, which some would consider to be a major flaw in a photo. So that's also what I'm blending together, is my longer exposure, and it wasn't terribly long for this photo, but the other photo was a lot quicker to make sure I didn't have those blurry branches. And once I start working around the water, I'm going to reduce this flow and opacity to more closer to 50%. Make my brush a little bit smaller because I'm really messing around right by the water here, and I don't want to bring out any of that bright water that was overexposed in the other photo. And I'm not going to get too darn picky here because I don't want to take forever to do this. But anyway, getting pretty close now to something I can move on to. See, I can even bring out a little bit of the, I'm going to even go down a little bit more because again, I don't want to bring out too much brightness, but I can even bring out a little bit of the other exposure that's a little bit brighter, just to even things up, because like I said, I did find that even the waterfall that was more of a proper exposure was actually a little bit less brighter than it could have been. So I can bring out a little bit of the other photo, brighten up the water a little bit. I can do this a couple different ways, which I'll also show you. Creek's a little bit dark, so I'll go over that a little bit. And okay, I think I've got that close enough to have made my point for now. Now I can look at this and I can see the areas that I've actually missed, and as you can see, some of it's the waterfall itself where the white area is there, and some of it's part of the lower creek down over here. So I think I've pretty much got all the dark areas, means I've got this all covered. So The first thing that I notice is that this is really dark here still, and this is a little bit dark as well here. So what I can do now to bring that out is go down to again over here, hope you can see my cursor here, and I go to create new layer. So I've got that there, new layer, and now I'm going to zip over here to the left, and I could choose a color. I'll generally stay with the general colors that you can see, greenish, yellow, but what you can do is you can actually point. Let's go down here on some of the bright moss, and I could actually get the color that is this moss, and it'll bring it up right here, but I don't really need to do that. So what I'm going to do is just go with a bit of a yellowish color so I can bring out some of this. So for the way I've got my settings right now, I'm going to go to 7, and we'll just go for the same number over here just to make it simple, 7. What I also need to do is double click on this layer mask and bring this up, and I need to bring the opacity down to about 50% here, and then I'm going to go right here where it says normal right at the moment, and I'm going to go down to soft light and click OK. And the reason I needed to do that was because if I just went with the settings the way they are and I started brushing with that color here, it'd bring out the darks way too quickly. So this is going to give me a more gradual, gentler approach to it, where I don't need to worry about it getting too bright too quickly. So let's just get going on this tree here. Hopefully you can see that this is already starting to bring things out a little bit. Make it a little bit less dark. If you like, you can always increase both of these. Let's go up to 10 or 12 there, see how that works. Okay, that's bringing it out a little bit quicker. And let's go up to this branch here and bring out some of that darkness. And over here, any of the dark areas basically that you want to work on, bring out a little bit of the creek, make this part of the water a little bit more even with some of the other whites and other sections. Basically bringing out any area that you feel is a little bit too dark. So I'm kind of going over just quickly areas that I feel are a little bit too dark, in just my opinion. My way of doing things is to basically get the end result to the point where it's pretty much what my eyes saw when I was there live at the scene, at the location. Kind of like the ferns over here, so I'll give them a little bit more emphasis, but not too much, because I don't want areas in the corners to be too light, because you want the main focus to be on the star of the show, as I usually call it, the waterfall, and the moss, I'll call those the co-stars. So again, this tree here is a little bit too dark in my opinion, so bring that out a little bit. This is all really dark over here. Tree's got some nice moss on it, so I'll particularly bring out the edge of that tree, and a little bit light here. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that, because I could go on and on. I do a lot of real subtle things that could take me 10 minutes to go over, but hopefully I've made my point. And so what I'll do next is I want to get rid of this tripod. So I can go about doing that in a number of different ways, and one of them, I'm going to have to go back to background here and hopefully this is going to work, because sometimes if you start adding too many layers and things like that, you have to shut down the photos and bring them back up again. But let's go up to quick selection tools, and I can back down here by the tripod. If I just go over that, you see the little dancing ants. So now I've got my tripod covered, and then I'll go left click, or sorry, right click on the mouse and fill, and OK, and hopefully this is going to work. There we go, it did, thank goodness. Then I have to click deselect to get rid of the marching ants. But as you can see, there's still some areas left of that tripod that, if I was just to leave it as is, would not look so great. It'd be pretty noticeable. So going to magnify by 50%, and then this will give me a good opportunity to show you other different things you can use. Going over to the spot healing brush tool, clicking on that, and now I've got the little circle right now. You can change the size of the circle by going up here and just increasing the size as big as you want, just to show you the difference there. But I just want it to be a little circle like that. So now I can start going over this. As you can see, that's disappearing. And there's a different way I could do this. I can go back to this spot healing, and I could go down. I was just using the spot healing brush tool. Now I can go down to the patch tool, and I can circle. I'll just do part of it for now, and then I can drag that over to the moss, and as you can see, that just got rid of it. Almost the same as the other tool I was using, but it's just a different way of doing things. You'll find there's advantages to doing it one way over the other way. Now I could actually go over all these dark patches if I really wanted and add a little bit more, as you can see again, moss, just to fill in certain areas. So I'm not going to go doing a whole bunch of this, but this is just showing you some options. But when you do that, it can look a little bit funny, and there can be a little dark spot right there. So I'll go back